Your father is a hideously ugly goblin. Yet you, this little goblin, are anything but. Not only are you excessively handsome, but you're also mature, decisive, and ruthless. The one who guided your mother is an elf as ethereal as a fairy, and before your rebirth, you were a top-tier assassin. When you open your eyes and see the beautiful woman trembling before you, you ask, "Are you my mom?" But before you can get an answer, the goblin cub born with you was lunging toward your mother. Relying on your past life instincts, you pounced and pinned her beneath you. Ignoring her desperate struggles, you grabbed a nearby rock and smashed it against her neck. Almost the very moment she met her end, a system voice rang out in your mind. Congratulations! By slaying your own kind with thunderous force at birth, you have acquired the skill cruelty and 1 point of strength. You ignored the system's voice, stroking the breath connected to you, feeling a surge of familial bond, and actually letting out an eerie smile. I am indeed your child. The beautiful woman in the corner looked utterly desperate. Having just given birth, she was completely powerless to resist. Just then, a young goblin crept up silently and suddenly launched an attack on you. Almost as an instinctive reaction, the beautiful woman rushed over and scooped you into her arms, taking the blow herself. A mouthful of blood gushed out immediately. Yet, having just been embraced by your mother's warmth, seeing blood trickling from her lips, a surge of rage welled up within you. In your past life, as a ruthless killing machine, the only emotion instilled in you was obedience to your mother. Thus, without hesitation, you raised a stone and struck the goblin cub with all your might. The mysterious system voice sounded again. Congratulations on defeating the goblin cub. Based on the effect of your skill, hunger, you gain 1 point of agility. Your lightning-fast action stunned everyone. But at that moment, you had only one thought. To kill every single goblin cub in front of you that dared to defile and harm your mother. After you took down 2 goblin cubs in quick succession, the rest of the pack snapped to attention and began to roar furiously at you. Roars at you, and the lair instantly descends into chaos. Yet, a cold, murderous intent flashes through your eyes. Precise strikes land one after another on the back of the goblin cubs' heads, and the system sounds announcing your gains never cease. After slaying 10 cubs, you've undergone over a dozen enhancements. You can clearly feel the changes in your body. Not only have you grown stronger in every aspect, but you've also acquired powerful skills. But just then, the old wooden door swung open, flooding the dim room with light. What was going on? 2 adult goblins entered and took a look. Good heavens, the room originally used for breeding had now turned into a morgue, littered haphazardly with the corpses of goblin cubs. At first, they thought the breeding slaves were responsible, until the 2 surviving goblins in the corner caught their attention. Seeing this, you immediately speed up your movements, about to hurl a stone at another cub. Just as the stone lands on the goblin cub's head, your foot is grabbed by the other adult goblin. You jump up to dodge the attack, simultaneously kicking out midair. The stone smashes directly into the goblin cub's left eye. Seeing that it isn't dead yet, you move to approach again, but this time, as the adult goblin lunged at you, you flung a handful of sand from your palm. With a thud, a stone landed precisely in the adult goblin's eye. You swiftly closed in on the goblin, but just as you were about to strike, the goblin shaman who had remained silent until then intervened. With a bold wave of his gray staff, countless vines burst from the ground, binding you in midair. Where did these plants come from? Why are they moving and wrapping around me? You little bugger, you dare to be so arrogant? I let you slaughter your own kind. I let you blind my eye. Just as the goblin's club was about to come down, the elf who had been hiding in the corner suddenly lunged out and pulled you into his arms. Stop it. Why are you stopping me? He's guilty of slaughtering dozens of his own kind. Goblin, I've already informed the general. This goblin's fate rests once again with the general. Upon hearing the word general, no matter how furious these goblins were, they dared not make a move against you. Simply because the goblin general is the leader of this goblin lair. But soon, the goblins shifted their gaze to the elf holding you, flashing a wicked grin. Though I can't touch you now, I can defile your mother. You. Sensing someone was targeting your mother, the rage in your heart was reignited. You immediately broke free from the vine's grip and rushed to the goblin's side. As you sidestepped his attack, you executed a powerful spin, dislocating the goblin's arm in 3 swift moves. The goblin rolled on the ground in agony. Damn it, not again. Another adult goblin couldn't stand by and watch. He stepped forward, raising his cleaver. Just as he was about to strike, a solemn voice made him stop dead in his tracks. Enough. General, you must take justice into your own hands. This one slaughtered dozens of his own kind the moment he was born. He absolutely cannot be spared. A newborn cub beaten like this. And you have the nerve to complain to me? Goblin. Kill him. Samantha nodded and explained the situation clearly. After hearing everything, the general's gaze fell on you, standing protectively in front of the elf. A flicker of shock crossed his piercing eyes, but he quickly concealed it. So it was you who killed them? He asked again. You stood firmly in front of your mother, saying nothing, not daring to relax even slightly. You could sense that the goblin before you was powerful, So powerful that even at the height of his strength, one would have to be cautious. Seeing that you wouldn't speak, the goblin shaman Samantha stepped forward and reminded him. General, it's Gub not speaking is quite normal. They won't be able to speak until they've outgrown the cub stage and reached adulthood. Since that's the case, we'll just have to wait until they can speak. Just then, you suddenly felt a wave of dizziness wash over your head, and you collapsed. Fortunately, thanks to your mother's care, you quickly came to. Afterward, you and your mother were taken to a prison. This place held a large number of young girls, all tools the goblins used for breeding. But you noticed that every time a girl was taken away by a goblin, she let out a hysterical scream. Your mother would cover your ears and eyes, trembling with fear and weeping. Seeing this, you asked with concern, Mom, what's wrong? The armed spirit nearby, hearing your question, suddenly burst into laughter. What's wrong? Of course she's going to become our toy. As if recalling a terrible memory, your mother let go of you, her eyes becoming vacant and silent. You reached out your small hand to stroke his head, restoring his nearly frayed mind to calm. Mom, please don't cry. Witnessing the scene, the goblin outside the iron gate seemed to relish it. The more terrified the prey, the more excited he became. Just enjoy yourself. In a few days, your mom will be everyone's mom. You watched the departing goblins, with a grim expression, mentally noting the leader among them. Mom was crying because of that guy. As long as I kill that guy, Mom won't cry. So, after nightfall, you took advantage of the goblins' lax patrols, and used your shadow blend skill to merge into the shadows, easily escaping from the room's cage. Since the prisoners were being taken away one by one, security here had loosened considerably. You quickly evaded the goblins' patrols and began searching everywhere for the goblin who had humiliated Mom that morning. After assassinating the patrolling goblins along the way, you finally found tonight's target. Just then, he was attempting to assault the woman in front of him. Please, anyone, save me. It's no use. Even if you scream your lungs out, no one will come to save you. The goblin licked his lips, preparing to enjoy the beauty before him. A flash of a blade sliced across his neck. The goblin's lecherous grin froze on his face. The next second his head hit the ground. Before Chris could figure out what had happened, he spotted you standing in the corner. He assumed you were some adventurer. A top-tier adventurer from the guild, who, after accepting a mission, had used skills to disguise himself as a goblin and infiltrated the lair to gather intelligence. Just as you were about to leave, he called out to you, wait a minute, boss. Could you do me a favor and take me out of here? You ignored him and turned to walk away, but soon turned back, snatching the dagger from his waist. You were very pleased with this weapon. As dawn approached, you quietly returned to the cell and burrowed back into Mom's embrace, falling into a deep sleep, until the next morning, when you were awakened by the shouts of a group of goblins. Frowning, you looked over and saw 3 goblins standing outside the iron gate. So, did you kill the goblin? Just as you stood up, ready to kill those annoying goblins outside. But your mother held you back. The one-eyed goblin outside the iron gate, seeing that you ignored him, flew into a rage. You little brat, how dare you ignore me? You're about to leave your childhood behind, and then your mother will give birth to other brothers for you. You thought the one-eyed goblin was too ugly, so you threw a pebble at him, nearly tearing his face open. He immediately flew into a rage, but at that moment, the goblin shaman stepped in to stop it. Enough. This has already been investigated. It was a woman we captured yesterday. Who did it? The one-eyed goblin tried to say something else but was glared down by the shaman. As the 3 goblins left, you and your mother were temporarily safe. You could tell your mother didn't like it here, so you silently swore to kill every last goblin, and then escape with her. But before you could act, an accident happened. That morning, a pair of goblins arrived at the prison to take your mother away. No need for me to say more, is there? You can come along too, kid. Watch how we're going to toy with your mother. The one-eyed goblin's words immediately sparked a burst of laughter from the other goblins. You don't care about insults directed at others, but you absolutely won't allow these goblins to insult your mom. Just as you were about to charge forward, your mother pulled you back. Be good. Wait here for me. I'll be right back. Your eyes widened with fury, and you wanted to charge forward and kill these monsters who had insulted your mother. Yet they showed not a shred of fear. Don't worry, they said. I'll make sure to take good care of and savor your mother. Eager to taste the delicacy, the goblin raised his hand to shove your mother aside. Just as his hand was about to strike her, it flew right off his arm. The next second, a trail of blood appeared on his neck, and he vanished. I won't let you take my mom away. Are you out of your mind? Driven to despair by your actions, go regret it, old brother. Seeing this, old brother Ling prepared to attack you with fire magic. However, before his spell could be cast, you were already on top of him, pinning his head down and slamming it into the ground. You heard the familiar system sound. Congratulations on defeating old brother Ling. You have acquired old brother Ling's skill, Fireball, hundreds of millions. Seeing this, all the old brother Lings froze in their tracks. One-eyed brother Ling, however, suddenly grew smug, disobeying the general's orders. Killing your own kind, bring it on. Take down this arrogant brat. One-eyed brother Ling was confident of victory, but unexpectedly, you retreated and vanished into the shadows. The goblins searched everywhere, but could find not a single trace of you. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared. and a head floated into the air. After that, every time you appeared, a goblin would die. Gradually, the other goblins dared not advance any further. At that moment, the system displayed a special message. Your strength has reached the cap for this stage. As you continued to swing your blade, your other stats soon hit their caps as well. But you paid no heed to this. Instead, you fixed your gaze on the one-eyed goblin before you, preparing for the final reckoning. The one-eyed goblin was so terrified that cold sweat poured down his face. He could only push the elf toward you. Mom. Just wait, it'll be over soon. The child said, but Mom stopped you from continuing. He knew that goblins were utterly detestable to any race. If you kept killing them, you'd likely have no place to stay here anymore. But just as you stepped forward to face the one-eyed goblin, about to strike, a dark shadow suddenly appeared and blocked your dagger. So you're that strange young, and your power is truly terrifying. When I was your age, I didn't even possess half of what you have. I fear that within the lair, only the general in his youth could have matched you. The one-eyed goblin, upon seeing the goblin knight, looked as though he'd found a savior. He lunged forward, wailing, "Sir, you finally arrived. Look at these kin, this creature killed them all." But before he could finish, you had already clamped your snout hands around his neck. At that critical moment, a white sword of silver. You think you can kill someone right in front of me? The goblin knight gripped his greatsword tightly and swung it with all his might. The next moment, you felt a terrifying force surge through you, sending your entire body flying into the wall. Just as you were about to charge forward, your mother stopped you. Child, don't. You can't defeat him. The goblin knight is a high-ranking goblin, directly under the goblin general, the second highest-ranking goblin, a high-ranking species, far beyond your current capabilities. Moreover, killing a high-ranking goblin is a capital offense. You have no chance of defeating me right now. While I'm still willing to reason, step away from that elf. Before the goblin knight could finish speaking, you had already appeared behind him, dagger in hand, only to be blocked with utter composure. Sensing the increase in your power, a faint smile touched the goblin knight's lips. Suddenly, he seemed tosamething. He continued, "If you don't come and kill me now, your mother will die." No sooner had the words left his mouth than you launched a storm of attacks, catching the goblin knight off guard. Just a cub, yet possessing such power? It's terrifying. But before us high goblins, you're nothing but an ant. The goblin knight swung with all his might, seizing an opening and thrusting straight for your heart. Fortunately, your dagger parried the blow in time, but you were still sent flying. Almost simultaneously, a flash of steel streaked from your hand, and the one-eyed goblin who'd been watching the spectacle suddenly dropped dead. Only then did the goblin knight realize he'd been tricked. Someone had killed a goblin right under his nose. Just then, a terrifying surge of power radiated from within you. Under the effect of the special talent seed of the king, your growth trajectory shifted slightly as you thought this through. Streaks of lightning danced wildly around your body like a shower, bringing about an astonishing transformation. Not only did you instantly grow 40 centimeters taller, but your physique became increasingly sleek and upright. With your head held high and chest thrust out, you looked every bit the high-level goblin. "Kill this brat!" shouted the goblin wood knight led by one goblin. The others joined in, raising their voices in a chorus of condemnation. Hearing the rest of the goblins, the goblin knight waves his hand and says, "Not bad at all. This is definitely no low-level goblin." No sooner has he spoken than a figure flashes into view like a ghost, and amidst the horrified stares of the surrounding goblins, it sends the high-level goblin knight flying, slamming him hard against the cave wall. You prepare to deliver the fatal blow, aiming straight for the goblin knight's neck. However, just as the dagger was about to strike its target, an invisible force suddenly surged forth, followed by a voice full of authority. "What is going on here?" You looked up and saw a burly figure emerging from the depths of the lair. It was none other than the goblin general, the absolute ruler of this lair. "General, you don't know this vile scion. He has killed so many of our kin. He is nothing short of a demon." The low-level goblins chattered away in a chorus of accusations, hoping to use the general's power to execute you. But the general merely waved his hand, signaling for silence. Almost simultaneously, a small figure appeared from behind him. Having spotted a slight opening in the goblin general's defense, you didn't hesitate for a second. You swiftly moved in for a sneak attack, slashing at the goblin general's neck. However, just as the blade was about to make contact, an invisible force suddenly appeared, sending you flying backward. Only then did the goblins react. "How dare you attempt to assassinate His Excellency the General?" The goblins, their faces twisted with fury, surrounded you. Yet the general called a halt to the standoff, and instructed the goblin shaman standing beside him, "Kill him. Take them away." The goblin shaman led the way. But you, looking wary, pulled mother behind. "You. Don't worry. We won't harm your mother. Please follow me." Accompanied by your mother, you travel from the 5th underground level to the 2nd, settling into a cozy cave. Before leaving, the goblin shaman asks your name. Without hesitation, you blurt out the 3 characters, Zero Ching Feng. From this moment on, you have left childhood behind. From now on, you must go out and contribute to the kingdom. If you go out on patrol or hunting, you can bring your mother lots of good things. You didn't take a single word of his lecture to heart, but the moment you heard you could bring your mother good things, You immediately perked up. With a serious expression, you asked, really? Then I'm in. Under the Goblin Shaman's persuasion, you were assigned to the patrol squad. The very next day, you joined the ranks and began fighting. The old goblin pointed to a pile of old weapons. Shouted to the goblins in front of him. Pick from here. Choose whatever you like and handles. Everyone rushed forward to choose larger weapons. But you were the only one holding a small one in one hand, with the other still empty. The old goblin warned you. Those humans out there are very cunning. Yet you insisted, this is enough. Soon, you followed the squad into a thicket of grass. One of the goblins picked up a telescope and stared intently at the humans not far away. Before they'd even engaged, he was already thinking, alright, how should we handle this loot? Remember to kill all the males right away, and keep the females for later. Seeing that you remained silent, the reckless goblin in the group decided to vent his frustration on your behalf. He deliberately said in front of you, when we get back, let's go have some fun with the elves. How about it? At the mention of elves, lecherous grins spread across the other goblins' faces. None of them knew where the elves were. But then the goblin man deliberately looked at you. Don't you have an elf in your cave? Why not let the brothers enjoy themselves? In an instant, the goblins cast envious, greedy glances your way. Just as Goblin Mang thought you'd fly into a rage and strike out, giving him an excuse to kill you, he never dreamed you'd simply raise your blade and slay the greedy goblin standing before you. Goblin Mang is overjoyed. He immediately puts on a righteous act and accuses you. Killing your own kind is a grave sin. How could you do such a thing? I'll send you down to join the other managers. Goblin Mang never expected you to be so brazen, showing him no respect at all. Before he could finish his threat, you move in a flash and drive a dagger straight into his heart. At your command, all the goblins respond. But one came, you killed one, a pair came, you killed a pair. Agile and quick-witted, you swiftly cut down the goblins one by one. Seeing this, the goblin chieftain finally grew afraid. He knelt on the ground, apologizing profusely and claiming he knew he was wrong. After waiting a long time without a response from you, he thought he'd escaped unscathed. Just as he was plotting to return and have the general settle the score with you, the next second he felt a blow to the head, and his entire body was split in two. After slaying a large number of goblins, you suddenly heard a steady stream of footsteps approaching. You realized a group of adventurers was closing in on you. In your past life, you were a top-tier assassin, but you've been reborn as the most handsome goblin. Your companions, however, were jealous of your good looks, and deliberately ostracized and tormented you. Unable to contain your anger, you lashed out at your fellow party members during a mission. Just as you were about to take a when you hear adventurers approaching. Before long, the party arrives at your side. They all stare at you in surprise as you stand atop a pile of goblin corpses. What's going on? What are you afraid of? After all, it's just a goblin. Look, those goblins' green ears are still attached. That's all money. With that, the leader lunges at you with a greedy look on his face, ready to deliver a fatal blow. However, just as the blade touches you, your entire body suddenly turns as black as ink, blending into the shadows of the forest. Before he can react, you appear directly behind him, pressing a pitch-black dagger against his throat. Suddenly, a voice rings out from behind, Holy Light Shield. Fireball. A barrier immediately envelopes Jido, and a burst of flame surges toward you. You quickly leap onto Kito's back, soaring through the air. Perform a backflip to the fireball and land steadily in the distance, putting space between you and them. You then blend back into the shadows. The party begins searching for you. Just as the mage prepares to cast a scouting spell to locate you, you deliver a direct slash to the mage. In the next second, she collapses to the ground. Immediately after, the priest spots a dark figure closing in on you. Two swift slashes end his life. As he dies, he shouts desperately to his companions, run. The remaining adventurers had intended to avenge their two fallen comrades, but in the blink of an eye, the captain also collapses to the ground. Seeing this, the last adventurer frantically runs toward the edge of the forest, but you don't let him escape. A precise slash cuts across his neck. At that moment, the familiar system voice rings out. Congratulations on defeating the human. You have gained a physical enhancement. Looking at the corpses on the ground, you feel not a flicker of emotion. After looting the spoils, you prepare to take these items back to your mother. Soon you arrive at the goblin lair. Seeing you alone, carrying a large sack, the other goblins cast strange glances your way, assuming you've been ostracized by your companions. A goblin deliberately brings a female slave, and he charges at you. Normally, you'd have punched him right away, but now you're carrying things. You ignore the other goblins jeering and walk past. Just as you're about to enter the lair, an old goblin named Chengdong calls out to you, Hey, you there. You were about to pretend not to hear him, but the guard goblin at the entrance stops you and reminds you. So you have no choice but to frown and turn around. The one who called you Goblin Chief Dong has already rushed up to you. I called you just now, why? Didn't you stop? Didn't you hear me? I didn't hear any goblin calling my name. Goblin Chief Dong trembled with anger. Just as he was about to raise his staff, he sensed a terrifying aura. One more move and his head would roll. He could clearly feel the oppressive presence of a high-ranking goblin. Seeing that Goblin Chief Dong remained without uttering a word, you grew impatient. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. Wait. You must hand over a portion of your loot. Goblin Chief Dong pointed at the bag on your back. Unexpectedly, you frowned and clenched your fist tighter. This is mine. What do you mean yours? The loot belongs to the lair. To the group. How could it possibly belong to just one goblin? The other goblins around you began to murmur in confusion. Goblin Chief Dong took a deep breath and warned you. You should know that. Any loot brought back by goblins here must be handed over half of it. No one is exempt. And what about the goblins who went out with you? They're dead. Hearing this, Goblin Chief Dong, who had been so cocky just moments ago, froze. Everyone looked at you, unscathed, with confusion. If you'd encountered a powerful foe, the whole group had been wiped out, that would be understandable. But how did you? How did they die? How did you survive? Goblin Chief Dong asked tentatively. I'm stronger than them. Want to try me? Hearing the implication in your words, Goblin Chief Dong's voice trembled with rage. He shouted, you're way too arrogant. I'm going to report you to the Goblin General right now. You must have been collaborating with humans. Otherwise, how could you be the only one to come back alive? You couldn't be bothered with their nonsense and turned to leave, only to be blocked by Goblin Chief Dong and his men. Wait here, or come with me to see the Goblin General. You'd already placed your hand on your dagger, ready to strike at any moment. Enough is enough. Seeing this goblin blocking your path again and again, you couldn't take it anymore. You drew your dagger and shouted, then die. Seeing you step closer, Goblin Captain Dong panicked. He immediately shouted at the low-ranking goblins behind him. Take down this brat. As the goblins reacted and began to surround you, you drew your dagger to defend yourself. Suddenly, a sharp voice rang out, everyone, stop. Leave this to me. Before Goblin Captain Dong could finish his complaint, the shaman cut him off and said directly to you, alright. You can go. You didn't ask any questions, you just nodded, and happily left with your bundle. Back in the dim, damp room on the second basement level, Victoria stared at the bloodstained bag in your hand. Speechless. Her voice trembling slightly, she asked, did you do it? You nodded without hesitation. Yeah, I killed so many of them. Isn't that awesome? As you spoke, you raised the bloodstained, hoping for your mother's praise. Unexpectedly, she reached out and slapped your hand away. Don't touch me. You didn't understand what you'd done to upset her. But seeing her staring intently at the bag, you dumped all your spoils out in one go. With a smug look on your face, you said, these are all for Mom. Take whatever you like. Your mother felt a mix of heartache and sadness, until she saw a pocket watch that looked like it had a photo inside. Happy birthday written on it. She instantly broke down. Seeing this, you panicked, ran to her side, and wiped away her tears. Victoria choked out, why did they want to hurt him? Because they wanted to hurt Qing Feng. How could anyone want to hurt you? Are you okay? Victoria's tone immediately turned anxious. She hugged you tightly and examined you closely. No, I'm fine. Mom, do you not want to hit them anymore? If Mom didn't let you scratch, would you listen to me? Of course. If Mom tells me not to scratch, I won't. But what if those people try to hurt you? It's okay, I'm really good at playing hide and seek. Looking at you, who didn't understand a thing, Victoria realized for the first time the importance of education. After a moment of silence, she told you solemnly, Mom doesn't want you to scratch people indiscriminately. But if someone tries to scratch you, Mom won't stop you. I hope you'll give them a chance. You nodded earnestly upon hearing this, and Victoria smiled with relief. Early the next morning, after breakfast, you prepared to head out as usual. Today, you were once again assigned to a reconnaissance team. Unlike yesterday's mockery and bloodsucking, this time no one showed any reaction to you. By eavesdropping on the goblins' conversations, you had already sketched out a floor plan in your mind, ready for the day when you'd wipe out these goblins and escape with your mother. At that moment, on the outskirts of the Divine Charm Forest, a group of adventurers was cautiously making their way through the dense undergrowth. Just then, a group of goblins suddenly leaped out from the trees. It was your squad. Seeing the goblins, everyone grabbed their weapons and stood their ground against them, but you simply watched from the trees. Only when both sides were left battered and bloodied did you suddenly strike, finishing off the remaining humans and goblins. From that moment on, you gained two new talents: the goblins' beast instinct and the human's perception. At that moment, you sensed that one human was still alive on the ground. You were about to finish him off with a single blow, but suddenly remembered your mother's words. So you sheathed your dagger and turned toward the goblin cave, unaware that your repeated habit of returning alone had already stirred discontent among the other goblins. Reborn as the most handsome goblin in the lair, you had risen through the ranks to join the ranks of the mid-tier goblins shortly after your birth. Just moments ago, you had gone out hunting as a group once more. Yet once again, you were the only one to return alone. This immediately sparked resentment among the other goblins. At that moment, a goblin clad in armor slowly walked over. Knight, come with me. The general wishes to see you. The goblins nearby immediately began whispering among themselves, gloating that you must have been too arrogant. Even the general wanted to interrogate you personally. However, when faced with the goblin knight's summons, you merely turned your head to glance at him before turning and walking away. In your eyes, nothing was more important than going back to see your mother. You, how dare you ignore me? Ignore the general's orders? The enraged goblin knight lunged at you, ready to grab you and drag you before the general. But you didn't even look back. You simply caught the attack with your bare hands. This left the Goblin Knight utterly stunned. He struggled violently, trying to pull his hand free, but you held it so tightly, he couldn't move an inch. So harrowed, and lunged at you with his other hand, but you merely flicked it aside and sent him flying. All the goblins present were left speechless. The next moment, the Goblin Knight scrambled to his feet and roared at you. Feeling humiliated, he no longer cared about the general's orders. All he wanted now was to tear you to pieces. But just as he charged at you again, a deep, solemn voice suddenly rang out. Step back. Hearing this, the Goblin Knight came to an abrupt halt. You turned to look in the direction of the voice and saw a burly goblin slowly stepping forward. It was the Goblin General. He exuded an intangible aura of oppression that made the other goblins dare not meet his gaze. In the next instant, the goblins hurriedly retreated toward the general, while the Goblin General slowly walked toward you, towering over you. You tensed your muscles, ready to launch an attack at any moment. But the Goblin General merely looked at you for a moment before turning away. Follow me, ordered. General Yan Ba then walked off on his own. Seeing you standing still and not following, he paused and added, if you don't want your mother to die, you'd better do as I say. Those words were like appetent medicine, causing your figure to vanish instantly. The next second, your claw was already aimed at the Goblin General's heart. Yet your claw halted right at the heart's location, unable to advance a single inch. You must realize, this was the perfect opportunity you'd worked so hard to find. But the Goblin General didn't even glance at you. He simply pinched your claw between two fingers. Not bad. Your strength has improved so rapidly in such a short time. Do you believe I'd kill you? If can do it, go ahead and try. But can you really? With that, General Goblin flicked his fingers. Yet even that tiny force from his fingertips sent your entire body flying through the air. You didn't come to your feet until after rolling several times on the ground. General Goblin's voice rang out again. If you don't want anything to happen to your mother, then you'd better follow me obediently. This time, you didn't hesitate and followed him all the way to the top floor of the Great Goblin Lair. On the staircase leading to the castle, you saw a scene of vibrant, blooming flowers all around you. You couldn't help but think that if Mom were here, she would surely love this place. Out of curiosity, you crouched down and picked a flower. The Goblin General, standing nearby, frowned at the sight. When he saw you reaching for a second flower, he finally couldn't hold back any longer. Enough. These aren't mine. Someone else planted them. But you acted as if you hadn't heard him and continued picking one after another until the Goblin General could take no more. He suddenly punched you in the head. And only then did you stop. By now, a huge bump had formed on your head. I told you not to pick them, he said. You clutched your head, feeling resentful. If you could beat him, you would have done so long ago. Seeing how much you loved drawing, the Goblin General suddenly suggested, if you want, take those flowers home. Then try to hit me. After saying this, he crossed his arms and looked at you with a serious expression. No way. You're way too strong for me. So you do get scared sometimes, huh? I just don't fight battles I'm not sure I can win. Just then, the Goblin Knight who'd been giving you trouble earlier ran out. A flash of inspiration struck the Goblin General. He suddenly pointed at the Goblin Knight. Knocking him down counts too. General, that's not. Isn't that just bullying the goblin? Though he said this, his eyes were filled with excitement. He'd long wanted to teach you, this brat who doesn't know his place, a lesson. If the general hadn't been here, he would have already made his move. At that moment, a flash of light crossed the Goblin General's eyes, and a panel immediately appeared before him. It displayed the Goblin Knight's stats and your combined strength. Unlike the Goblin Knight's normal data, your appear highly anomalous compared to a goblin who has just broken through the growth phase. Every time he goes out, this kid's stats improve. How interesting. Ordinary creatures need to undergo long-term training to boost their stats. Yet this kid has covered the ground others take years to traverse in just a few short days. To gauge your strength, the Goblin General arranged a trial match between you and the Goblin 7th faction. The moment he announced the start, the Goblin 7th faction immediately charged at you. You didn't flinch. You simply took a step back to dodge the slashing attack. Then, raising your hand, you hurled a massive fireball at the Goblin Knight faction. Yet, though the fireball spell struck the Goblin Knight's armor with precision, it left only a faint scratch and didn't affect the Goblin Knight in the slightest. It's useless. The Goblin Knight's armor is immune to most magical attacks. The Salt Goblin Knight grinned and charged at you once more. Although you blocked the attack with your dagger, the sheer force of his strike sent you flying. Just as you were hurtling through the air, the Goblin Knight leaped up, intending to finish you off. But in the next instant, a fireball slammed into his face. The fireball didn't harm him, but hesitated a hint of danger. He instantly halted his attack and twisted his body, narrowly avoiding the dagger fired from behind the fireball. At that moment, he felt a chill of relief. If he hadn't dodged in time, he would have been finished right there. I was just careless earlier. This time, I won't make the same mistake. But the goblin's momentum had already peaked. Just then, Wei Luo realized you were gone. He was immediately alarmed and began searching frantically for your. Meanwhile, the Goblin General narrowed his eyes. He saw clearly that you had used blind spots. To move swiftly, thereby concealing yourself. Such skill isn't mastered overnight. Yet you were born only recently. This defied logic, causing the Goblin General to furrow his brow. He simply couldn't fathom why. Meanwhile, the battle raged on. The Goblin Knight could sense the danger, but couldn't locate you, pushed him to the brink of collapse, and could only roar in fury. Hiding is no skill. If you've got the guts, come out and face me. But in the next instant, you appeared behind the Goblin Knight. By the time he sensed you, it was already too late. Just as the dagger was about to pierce the Goblin Knight's body, the Goblin General intervened. He appeared before you in an instant. Then, with just one hand, he effortlessly blocks your attack. That's enough. The Goblin General has intervened. The Goblin Knight immediately shakes you off and roars at you. You just wait. I'll make you pay for this. You ignore his rant. And look at the Goblin General, he's still alive. Seeing that you actually intend to kill him, the Goblin Knight suddenly furious. Just as he was about to curse, he realized you had vanished again. The next second, you appeared behind him, leaving a shallow wound on his neck. Feeling humiliated, the Goblin Knight shouted that he would beat you up, but was loudly rebuked by the Goblin General, who ordered him to step back. The Goblin Knight dared not disobey the General's command. As he retreated, he glared at you viciously, but failed to notice that the blood seeping from his neck, it seemed to be mixed with something. Once the Goblin Knight had walked far enough away, the General slowly spoke up, questioning. You, why didn't you finish him off? Did you want to kill him? Why should I stop? What's wrong with killing him? Isn't victory in a contest only determined after the opponent is dead? Is this your way of survival? What is the way of survival? I only know that to stay alive, I must kill every creature that threatens me. Hearing these words, which seemed unbecoming of his age, the Goblin General sighed heavily. Then he waved his hand. Go on, then. Take the flower you picked and leave. After you're gone, come back here every day. I'll teach you combat techniques. It's simple. I'm really good at it. That's assassination, not combat technique. Besides, your assassination technique is far too dangerous. It completely disengages all defenses. Who on earth taught you that? You're practically throwing your life away. My mom taught me. But you didn't explain. Was it woman called mom from my past life? The Goblin General narrowed his eyes. Are you coming over later? You have to come, no matter what. You hated being stuck with this hulking giant. We're desperate to go back to mom. So you stubbornly retorted. What gives you the right to say I can't? Because I'm stronger than you. Then let's try it. Half an hour later, you lay panting on the ground and glared at the Goblin General. I'll definitely answer your challenge. If you think you can do it, go ahead and try. I'll be your opponent anytime you want. But before that, go and get stronger by any means necessary. With that, the Goblin General walked away without looking back. You rested on the ground for a moment, preparing to stand up, when suddenly your legs gave out and you fell back down. The previous battle had drained all your energy, but if you didn't hurry back, Mom would worry. Thinking of this, you forced your body to stand, but your legs gave way again and you collapsed. This time, however, you fell onto something soft. At that moment, you caught a scent different from Mom's. You should rest properly when you're injured. H1tman really is something, being so harsh on a little kid. If this were among humans, it would be child abuse. Sis, who are you? My name is Elena. I'm H1tman's wife, you know. She then touched the scar on her face. Oh no. Am I really that ugly? Did I scare you? Am I ugly? You suddenly remembered something. Struggled to crawl out of Elena's arms. I have to go. My mom is waiting for me. No, you can't. You're still injured. Let me heal your wounds first, then you can go, okay? Will it take long? Seeing Elena shake her head, you hesitated for a moment before deciding to trust her. Elena took some medicine out of her ring. You sniffed it, it didn't smell like poison. For some reason, you felt a strange connection to this woman you just met. As Elena treated you, she explained. Healing magic generally works by channeling life force to accelerate cellular metabolism. All magic comes at a cost. Using healing magic in battle is a last resort. But if you have time afterward, and your injuries aren't severe, it's better to rely on your own recovery with some medicinal aid. You nodded blankly, not quite understanding, and nodded blankly, smiling at Elena. By the time you emerged from the Goblin General's castle, it was already late at night. As you walked downstairs past the entrance to the lair, Goblin Dong suddenly called out to you. You haven't taken your things yet. Don't say you don't want them. It's a waste of salt. Goblin Dong kicked the bag at his feet. It contained the loot you'd gathered today. You picked up the bundle to trade with the goblin, but just as you were about to step into the lair, a goblin named Shower, who had been lurking in the shadows, darted out. Just as he tried to chase after you, he was stopped by a patrolling goblin. Where on earth are you from, goblin? But the other goblin didn't seem to know how to speak yet. He struggled to follow you. You had sensed his presence long ago, but ignored him, going about your business, exchanging a few goblin shells for some fruit and food to take back to your mom. You even a few buckets of instant noodles. Since the goblins didn't know how to eat this stuff, the price was quite cheap. You decided to grab a few buckets, ignoring the little goblin who'd been stopped by the patrolling goblins behind you. You walked straight through the iron gate to the second floor lair, pushed open the door, and caught a familiar scent. You were about to shout, Mom, I'm back. When, no sooner had the words left your mouth than Victoria came running out from deep within the room, seeing you covered in wounds. Mom anxiously checked your injuries. So you told her everything that had happened today. Although you didn't know what the Goblin General's purpose was in training you, you could at least be certain that he had no intention of harming you. Meanwhile, in the tavern of the Goblin Lair, the Goblin Knight stood at attention, bragging about how he'd taught you a lesson. Suddenly, he coughed up a mouthful of black blood, then lost consciousness completely and collapsed to the ground. And you heard the familiar system voice. Congratulations on defeating the Goblin. His forces have gained Wild Instinct. You have received 1 special evolution point. Soon, thanks to your outstanding performance over the past few days, you received a generous reward. You no longer needed to pick through equipment in that shabby armory. Looking at the well-stocked armory before you, you were dazzled. Until your gaze settled on the black powder in the corner. You immediately feel a surge of joy. This is a rare treasure. If you can gather enough black powder, might you finally be able to take down that so-called Goblin General? You silently note the location, intending to return for it later, then continue inspecting the other weapons. Your gaze falls upon a bow and arrow, an ancient-looking slingshot with a blade as sharp as a sword. You are thoroughly satisfied with it. After all, in assassination, stealth and precision are paramount. Just then, you hear the distinctive cry of a goblin. You turn to look at your new teammate for the day. There stands a goblin missing an ear, staring blankly into space. Just then, another goblin carrying a staff runs over. Greetings, Lord Qingfeng. I am your so-called teammate, Goblin Xiaoyan. Goblin Xiaoyan extends his hand, but you merely give him a casual glance. Your gaze instead fixed on the. Alright, once you've got your weapons, follow me. This time I, senior goblin, will be leading you. I'm also your captain. My name is Goblin Changdong. You should feel honored. Today, I'll take you out to see the world and visit our goblin troops. But before Goblin Changdong could finish speaking, he was interrupted by a massive goblin. I just want to beat people up. Glaring at the dim-witted big brother, Goblin Changdong chuckled. That's a shame. Our mission today doesn't involve fighting. If you won't follow orders, you're free to leave. Hearing this, the big goblin didn't hesitate and turned to leave. But he was stopped in his tracks by Goblin Changdong's next words. If you disobey my orders, you'll be expelled from the Great Goblin Lair. This is the Goblin General's command. Under normal circumstances, Goblin Changdong wouldn't have bothered with Decibel-level goblins. But since this was the Goblin General's order, he had no choice but to comply. The group followed Goblin Dong to a medium-sized goblin lair. Unlike the Great Goblin Lair, the moment they stepped inside, they felt a wave of heat wash over them. Then they saw a goblin, believe it or not, actually forging something. This was the Goblin Armory, the place responsible for weapon production. Almost all weapons were manufactured here, but their gaze drifted toward a group of women who had just been captured. One of them looked particularly familiar. The senior goblin in the group, upon seeing this, fell deep in thought. Why are we wasting precious resources on these seemingly useless tasks? Wouldn't it be faster and more convenient to simply seize weapons from those adventurers? We already have so many weapons in our great nest that we've taken from adventurers. Why go to all this trouble to manufacture them ourselves? The senior goblin couldn't understand. With all this experience, we might as well kill a few more humans and drive them out of this forest. Upon hearing this, Goblin Changdong shook his head. The general says we cannot always rely on others. Only by mastering the art of weapon crafting can we, the goblins, truly become an independent race, no longer subject to others. General, do you want us to break free from our reliance on those adventurers' weapons? Besides, most of the weapons looted from adventurers are crafted to suit them and are completely unsuitable for us. Goblins. General, are you planning to forge weapons unique to us? Goblin Changdong didn't argue with Goblin Xia. After all, this fellow had been personally named by the Goblin General himself, and was later selected to join this squad. He was certainly no ordinary goblin. Just then, a hearty laugh suddenly echoed from within the cave. A burly goblin, wielding a massive iron hammer in his hand. You're half right. Hello, everyone. I'm Goblin Hammer, the head of the armory. You can just call me Hammer. Looking at the oddball group before him, Goblin Hammer's lips curled into a faint smile. Putting together such an interesting team out of the blue. I wonder what the Goblin General is up to. Just as Goblin Hammer was about to tell you all to go rest in your rooms, suddenly, everyone's attention was drawn to the screams coming from the doorway. It turned out to be a group of women captured by the goblins and dragged into their lair. They were bound together, their eyes filled with fear and despair. Among them, a familiar figure caught your eye. It was Chris, the woman sent to your rival. What is she doing here? Just then, the Zergoblin suddenly let out a loud cry and charged toward the goblin holding the rope. Diaso, are you trying to steal our spoils? How dare you? Seeing this, the goblin holding the rope kicked Zelgoblin squarely in the stomach without hesitation. Zelgoblin was sent flying and crashed to the ground. As he struggled to get up, the goblin prepared to stomp on his head again. Stop it. Even when beating a dog, you should respect its master. If you hurt the people I brought here, where does that leave my reputation? From now on, don't just pounce on any woman you see and try to snatch her away. This is our spoils of war. We get to enjoy them first. It's our right. Or you can wait until we've had our fill. A group of goblins laughed loudly as they prepared to leave, but the Cur goblin struggled to his feet and grabbed the low-level goblin's hand. Seeing the little goblin repeatedly trying to steal his things, the low-level goblin flew into a rage and slapped him across the face. Cur goblin still clung to him tenaciously. Just as the goblin leader Dong was about to intervene, he was warned. You saw it clearly. It was this guy who tried to steal our stuff. The general himself said private property is sacred. Even if I kill him right now, you won't get off scot-free. Then the other low-level goblins rushed forward, punching and kicking the goblin named Kair. Though he was already beaten to a pulp, he still tried to turn back and comfort those girls. But due to the goblin's hideous hide, the sight was even more repulsive. Seeing that he wouldn't relent, a low-level goblin swung his long sword, poised to strike. Just as the blade was about to fall, the goblin actually flashed a smile of relief, but the expected blow never came. A strong, powerful hand blocked him. Little brother, you're not so clever. You may be weak, but you have a rare courage. Let go, you fool. You're actually pointing your blade at your own comrade. With that kind of experience, you'd be better off killing a few more humans. Who the hell are you? What gives you the right to lecture me? Brothers, attack. The low-level goblin roared as he charged at the big goblin. However, with a light swing of his fist, the big goblin sent the low-level goblin flying, slamming him hard onto the ground. The other goblins swallowed hard at the sight. You can't do this. That guy broke the rules trying to steal our stuff. So what? Just give him a woman. You've got plenty of them anyway. The low-level goblin tried to say more but was glared down by the big goblin. So, after a friendly exchange with the big goblin, they secured a girl of about 13 or 14. However, just as the low-level goblins were about to leave, a goblin who had remained silent the whole time, Goblin Iron, the apprentice of the Goblin Hammer, spoke up. Didn't you see how many of them there are? How can one woman be enough? The low-level goblins didn't dare to argue with Goblin Iron, so they left 4 more women behind. Goblin Chongdong scooped the girl into his arms and, led by Goblin Iron, walked into the room. The Sparrow Goblin, lying on the ground, looked up at the ceiling, as tears streamed down his face. Just then, a timid voice interrupted his thoughts. A young girl in her prime approached him, trying to comfort him. Sparrow Goblin stood up from the ground, but his legs immediately gave way. Fortunately, Big Brother Goblin caught him, carefully helped him walk. I don't understand what you're saying, but you really are quite strange. You don't even know how to say Goblin's Reign. Seeing such a cheerful Big Brother Goblin, Goblin couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It seemed goblins really were a mixed bunch. Then his gaze fell on the woman standing beside Big Brother Goblin. One isn't enough. You want this one too? Snow Goblin froze for a few seconds, leading Big Brother Goblin to think he didn't want her. But the next second, Big Brother Goblin swung his blade directly at the woman. Snow Goblin's eyes widened at the sight, filled with terror and rage. The Elder Goblin, however, didn't seem to care. Those polycystic ones are truly disgusting, with a look of disgust. I don't know why those goblins brought these humans back in the first place. We should have killed them all. Killed every human who dares to invade our goblin territory. Don't you agree? As he spoke, the Elder Goblin reached out to place a hand on Sure Goblin's shoulder, only to have it ruthlessly shaken off. Sure Goblin roared at him in fury. So that's what you wanted. Why didn't you just say so? But it's no big deal. Seeing that he couldn't reason with the Elder Goblin, Air Goblin grabbed the dazed girl and turned to walk into his own room. On the other side, the goblin named Tai pointed at the room labeled Linny, and said to you, this is your room. You nodded and walked in. A woman in a long dress stood at the doorway, head bowed. You merely glanced at her indifferently, without a moment's hesitation, and shut the door. Bedona stood before the door, completely bewildered. Could he really have escaped? With that thought, Bedona quietly slipped away from the doorway and headed toward the entrance of the lair. He was lucky enough not to encounter any goblins along the way, but just then, a piercing scream echoed from the distance. It was one of his companions. One of the women taken away by those low-level goblins was in. He glanced over stealthily, then froze in place. Inside the room, several bodies lay in a state of extreme brutality, and the only survivor was his friend, who was being surrounded and assaulted by several goblins. Just then, his friend seemed to see something. His eyes widened as he stared intently toward the doorway and screamed, but because his mouth was stuffed with something, he couldn't make a sound. Yet the commotion caught the goblins' attention. Seeing their gaze, the doornet immediately took off running. However, a pair of hands suddenly reached out from behind him, clamped around his neck, and lifted him off the ground in an instant. Although the Bell brothers were naturally a bit wild, you weren't like them in your speech. After deliberately letting the woman assigned to serve you go, you slowly opened your eyes and spoke to the empty room. Come out. The next second, Chris emerged from the corner with a grin. Ha 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 ha. You can't hide anything from the boss. To be honest, boss, I'm here to cause trouble. I wonder if you have any intel or maps lying around? Of course, that'd be great. If you're willing to help, I'd be happy to hand over half of my mission reward to Big Shot. You've been stuck in a goblin lair since birth. In your past life, you were just an assassin constantly risking your life for your mother. You've never even heard of mission rewards. Seeing you furrow your brow in confusion, Chris mistakenly thought you were unhappy with the offer. 4? How about 473? I can't go any higher. 82? I really can't go any lower. At that moment, Chris was on the verge of tears, not realizing that you hadn't a clue what he was talking about. The moment you opened your mouth, Chris assumed you'd agreed, and hurriedly shared his mission with you. My mission is to get a map of this place. If I can. Also investigate the defensive forces and the layout here, that would be even better. The reward is gold. Coins, 3 gold coins. Is already a month's income for an ordinary person. And for him, just drawing a map to get such a generous reward is a total steal. Of course, the mission's difficulty is also immense. As everyone knows, goblins are a bunch of monsters who love to charge headlong into battle. But you have no idea what 1,000 gold coins are good for? He felt they were no match for the practicality of a weapon. With that thought, his eyes fell on the ring on Chris's finger. You could sense a faint, mysterious fluctuation emanating from the ring. One very similar to the mysterious power within your own body. Noticing your gaze, Chris quickly clasped the ring in his hand. No way. This is a very precious spatial ring. It can store 3 cubic meters of items. Out there, it's worth over 1,000 gold coins. You stared blankly at him without speaking. Your gaze alone put immense pressure on Chris, who feared you might snap it in a fit of anger. In the end, Chris had no choice but to obediently remove the ring and hand it to you. You took the ring and examined it curiously. To your surprise, as you infused it with magic, you could freely retrieve items from it. For a moment, you were thoroughly engrossed in playing with it. Just then, a knock sounded at the door. You and Chris exchanged a glance, and he immediately activated a skill Vanish. Is Ching Feng asleep? You clenched your fist and opened the door. Standing there were Goblin Tai and Vidona. Goblin Tai shoved Vidona forward. I brought your slave back for you. I don't have a slave. Goblin Tai narrowed his eyes. So this woman really was kicked out. Who would have thought? There were goblins who weren't interested in women? Just as you were about to close the door to send them on their way, you suddenly feel your wrist being grabbed. You look up to see Vidorna's tear-streaked face. No, please, save me. Vidorna cries. I'll do anything you ask. Faced with Vidorna's plea, you remain unmoved and let go. Seeing this, he immediately shouts. I'll do whatever you tell me to do from now on. But you hear only your firm refusal. Vidorna had completely lost all will to survive. As she was being taken away, she wept and muttered to herself. If only I hadn't accepted that elf's mission. Hearing the woman mention a familiar elf, you hesitated for a second, then hurriedly told the goblin, wait, I'll take her. Before the goblin could react, you pulled Vidorna directly into the room. The goblin tried to say, but could only shake his head helplessly and turn to leave. Xiaoxing. The remaining Vidona glared at you with a look of utter disbelief, completely caught off guard by your sudden change of heart. Seeing you staring at him, he began to slowly strip off his clothes. It's my first time, so please be gentle. You looked completely puzzled. You'd only let him in because he'd just mentioned an elf. Coincidentally, your mother seemed to be an elf as well. As Vidona was reduced to his underwear, Chris, hiding in the shadows, finally couldn't hold back any longer. Covering his eyes in embarrassment, he kindly reminded Vidona to wait a moment. You two are going to practice the waka move, but you have to wait until I'm gone. After saying this, Chris used gravity to vanish instantly. At that moment, you spoke up slowly. You mentioned earlier that you received a mission involving an elf. What's that about? Hearing your words, Vidona suddenly realized. So the boss kept me here because he was interested in this and hurriedly told him the truth. The reason I entered this forest is because I received a quest from a team composed entirely of elves. The quest is to find an elf named Victoria. Is that definitely her name? Vidona nodded frantically. Seeing this, you gave Vidona a casual glance. You can stay here. No goblins should come in here. After saying that, you left the room, thinking to yourself, are those elves looking for Mom? Are they Mom's companions? If I tell Mom, she'll be so happy. Just as you stepped out of the cave, you ran into those low-level goblin recruits who'd clashed with the day goblins and quells earlier. Upon seeing you, Armlingua spoke up first. Our honored guest, where are you headed so late at night? Armlingua smiled as he walked toward you, just as he was about to pat your shoulder but you dodge it. Seeing this, his brow involuntarily furrows. He feels you're looking down on him, and his fists instantly clench. Yet he forces down his anger and extends an invitation. Where are you headed? We're just about to go hunting. Want to join us? I'm pretty good at this, you know. As he speaks, the shadow beneath the goblin begins to warp, and then, to your surprise, it rises from the ground, with a smug look on his face boasting about the skill he'd recently acquired. How about that? How about that? This shadow of mine can actually lurk within the shadows, you know. Little did he know that his boastful behavior was about to bring about his own downfall. You glanced at Goblin View, then looked at the low-level goblins behind him, and instantly made up your mind. Killing them all would be a waste of time. So you ignored Goblin View and walked straight away. The ignored stared at you fiercely, then followed you in a fawning manner. Wait, how about we go together? You don't know, but there are a lot of adventurers out there right now. You paid no heed to this either. letting the goblins trail behind you. They could even serve as a human shield. All the way, Goblin Boo chattered non-stop, creaking and groaning, until you had left the goblin lair and were a good distance away. Only then did he finally reach his limit. Seeing the location was correct, Goblin Boo exchanged a glance with the goblins beside him. Seizing the opportunity, he planned to teach this little goblin, who dared to steal our woman, a lesson. The next second, the goblin beside you suddenly lunged at you. Little did they know that you had already noticed their underhanded schemes the whole way. In an instant, you knocked the goblin in front of you to the ground and charged toward Goblin Boo's side. Goblin Boo is horrified. He never expected you to be so agile. It seems he misjudged the situation. But he still has a backup plan to kill me. You're still too green. Goblin Boo, who had been hiding in your shadow all along, suddenly appears from behind you. A massive black broadsword is already aimed at your neck. At this distance, even a high-level goblin in its growth phase couldn't dodge it. But just as the blade is about to strike, your body turned pitch black. Your entire body dissolved into a shadow, passing right through the blade. Goblin Boo was stunned. Without hesitation, he immediately summoned a shadow to block the attack. But it was too late. By the time you reappeared, you had already crossed the shadow and stood before Goblin Boo, your blade aimed at his neck. A few seconds later, the system announced, "Congratulations on defeating the goblin. You have acquired the summon clone skill and 1 point strength." As the goblin chief's head fell, the other goblins finally realized what had happened. You'd actually taken out the goblin chief. And in the blink of an eye, they played the victim first. You're a despicable goblin. How dare you harm your own kind? Charge. Facing the charging goblins, you remained calm. With the skill now in hand, there was no need to play along with them. Just then, an adventurer's voice suddenly rang out. "There's a goblins here." That day, while patrolling with a group of low-level goblins, you suddenly spotted a pair of adventurers charging toward you. Seeing this, you immediately fled the scene. The low-level goblins nearby cursed you as a coward for running at the sight of humans. As they spoke, they turned on the humans and launched an attack. A fierce battle ensued. Relying on your numerical superiority, you held your ground and fought back. An archer named Arna saw you running away, immediately gave chase. Seeing that he was alone, you deliberately slowed your pace, luring him deep into the dense forest. "Come out and let me kill you properly." "You're going to kill me?" Your sudden appearance from behind startled him. He looked stunned. This goblin actually speaks the human language? Could it be that this goblin hasn't fully transformed yet? But he didn't sense any signs of transformation. Could this goblin be some kind of special individual? After gathering his thoughts, Arna pretended to be calm and replied, "Of course. Killing monsters is our adventurer's duty." You didn't respond. Just stared at him, staring so intently it made him uneasy. He involuntarily took a step back. But unexpectedly, you suddenly said, "I see no murderous intent in your eyes. So I won't kill you." With that, you turned and walked away, leaving Arna standing there dumbfounded. You returned to the main goblin force. Most of the adventurers and low-level goblins were mostly injured and lying on the ground. Only one warrior, Dell, wielding a greatsword, and a single goblin remained standing. The goblin let out a furious roar, and lightning flickered across its palm. However, just as Dell and the goblin were about to attack, an arrow shot through the air, striking the goblin's heart with precision. Everyone was astonished, and a familiar system notification sounded in your ears. "Congratulations on defeating the goblin. You have acquired the goblin skill Lightning Strike." Just as you sheathed your bow and prepared to leave, a furious shout rang out, "I found you." Immediately, a sharp throwing knife sliced through the air. You darted aside, leaping down from the tree, quickly changing your position. But you soon sensed a powerful killing intent locking onto you. Your eyes flashed, and, with a swift movement, you collided with the charging figure. Dell was sent flying by your strike, crashing heavily into a large tree. He stared at you in disbelief, realizing that you were indeed somewhat different from the rest. Although you had the signature green skin and ears, your face bore a striking resemblance to that of a human. Witnessing the astonishing power you had displayed, the rest of the team shouted for their captain to run. Yet Dell struggled to his feet, his gaze firm and resolute as he declared, "I will not abandon my teammates." With that, he raised his sword once more and charged at you. But you merely raised your hand slowly.